Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate you guys coming here. This is essentially session 0 for a wider program that I'll get into in a moment. But this session is called Freelancing. Isn't that mad? Low key, it is. But we're trying to unpack how we can get over that hurdle of the obstacles that you face once you start freelancing. I started freelancing by force. I was made redundant in 2024, and I made the decision to stay freelance because I felt like it was a bet on myself, essentially. I'm no longer freelance. It was hard. I felt like I went into it in the same way that everyone else does, which is not very informed of how to start, not knowing how to set up, whether to be a sole trader, whether to start a limited company, not knowing how to build a career in a way that worked for me and in a way that I could maintain. And even though I still do freelance, inevitably, I felt like I needed some sort of formal guidance. The same way you do an apprenticeship, do uni, freelancing is something that's so missed out. No one tells you any sort of structure. No one gives you advice unless you seek it. There's not really a place to go. So this is what we'll dive into in this session. A bit of background. I, along with my brother, where's your hand? Who is the Orolua, we are co-founders of Yellowzine. Yellowzine, we started off as a physical print magazine, which you can flick through once we're done. It's on the table right there. And we work with artists across the African, Asian, and Caribbean diaspora, across several disciplines from graphic design to illustration, artistry, photography, painters, really a wide range of multidisciplinary artists, stylists. And then since then, we have progressed to work on events. We do curation for companies like The Tate or The Ornament. And we've also done brand collabs. And we do events like these, workshops and panels to support ourselves in a sense of seeing ourselves in our community and trying to, I think in everything that we've done, it's been trying to find the answer that we didn't feel like we had at the time when we were starting things out and trying to do things by ourselves. This is us. Orolua is my older brother. We've been working together on Yellow for about 8 years now. It's been great, working with a sibling. And so my background is a lot more in the copy space. Orolua's background is more in the design space. So a magazine just kind of came inevitable mixing of our skill set. And this was really the insight that drove us to start Mad Academy, which is that 32% of the creative workforce is currently self-employed, either by force or by choice. Either it's redundancy or they've chosen to take a bet on themselves and explore themselves more independently. And by 2030, 50% of the entire global workforce is expected to be self-employed in one way or another. So essentially what we're trying to do is get ahead of that. And especially as Black and brown people, often we find ourselves on the back foot and play catch up, especially in the creative industry, where, a lot of things is who you know or who you're connected to, or who your dad is. So we're trying to build this platform and community and hub that provides these resources as accessibly as we can, so that we're not left behind and we can, operate from a level playing field. So we have Mad Academy. It stands for Makers and Doers Academy, because essentially that's what we are. And it's a program for independent makers and doers to learn the important stuff that nobody tells you. So that is from, like tax. What is IR35? And 30 years old, I don't know. So it's just like that guiding force. We're trying to be that guiding force to figuring that stuff out and speaking to people, these beautiful people over here, that have been in the field from varied aspects and that can give their insights from a different angle each time, whether it's from the recruitment side of things or from the entrepreneurial side of things. And the way the program is broken down is from career development sessions all the way to networking events, personal branding sessions, really getting into a portfolio. What does a good portfolio look like? What do recruiters look for when they're looking at a great graphic design portfolio or a great company portfolio? How can we share opportunities with each other, whether that's grants or funding or job opportunities, and then access to resource, funding, equipment. And that's it, really. A whistle-stop tour of what Mad Academy will be. This is session 0. That's like a broader overview of freelancing as a whole. Any questions that you might have, please feel free we'll have a Q&A at the end. Please come ready with your questions. And if you want to register your interest in the wider program, which will launch on Monday, the program itself will start in like a month's time. We'll leave this on screen. You can scan this QR code and let us know that you're interested so we can keep you in the loop. But without further ado, I'll pass you on to my beautiful panelists. Thank you all so much for coming. The three of you have been inspiration to both of us for a really long time. And we're so privileged to have you on board and to have you share your wonderful, wonderful insight with us. We would love if you could introduce yourself. If we could start with you, Naomi.
Hello, Naomi Dacosta, and I, how would I describe my hiring partner and strategist for design-led companies, but based on, I guess, through the lens of hiring people and recruitment. I've done that for about 24 years. And I work with places like Lego or Google, quite a lot of experimental companies. So I guess doing new stuff like VR and mixed reality and that kind of stuff, but from quite a graphic design background. And I started freelancing or having my own business because I moved countries and there wasn't really much choice. It was either work for myself and like you said, it was taking a bet on yourself and really believing in myself. And I've managed to make it work for 13 years now. So hoping to keep going.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jedidah. I am a multidisciplinary creative. So I work primarily as a director and creative director. I also video edit. But I started off doing videography for events. I started off just filming stuff for my friends and family, like birthdays. Then I made a page on Instagram and decided that I was going to be whatever I said I was going to be. So I was making like videos for events and then hair companies. And then I got into brand work and then galleries. And so, now I curate and do a bunch of things, but primarily directing and video editing. I too was made redundant.
Big up redundancy.
Yeah, shout out to redundancy. No, really, because I got paid to leave from a job that I didn't like. So it was like, thank you. So I got made redundant. I had been planning and saving to go freelance, and then I just was scared to do it because I just felt like, I need a safety net of money in my bank account. And then when I got made redundant, I said, cool, well, this is it. And it's been 5 years since that happened. So, yeah.
Amazing. I love the journeys. I wish I got made redundant. Like, literally, I've just been jugging. I've been jugging. Hi, everyone. My name is Agbetu. I'm a curator, strategist, and educator. Lofty. I guess a lot of my work is about sovereignty and about authorship, who gets to tell their stories, how it's archived. So I started out working on a lot of brand campaigns. I was really lucky to start my career through D&AD Shift and move into advertising, work on Nothing Beats a Londoner, and then go in-house at Nike. But I found my heart in kind of cultural production stuff, which is how you work with communities. So I'm doing a master's right now in socially engaged practice, which is how these communities contest or create collections within institutions that are supposed to be these archives of our time. Because I think that's what I'm trying to create. And I still jug in advertising because money. But I think it's about like how do you like translate what people's truths are into different spaces, and I'm more concerned with the archive and like what it means in the future and what it means to the people who got to tell that story, why. So yeah, I teach a unit across LCF, London College of Fashion, and CSM. It's about collectives, which is just like how people creating their own like moments and vibes. And I'm teaching a program at Mosaic Rooms, which is a similar thing, about like neighboring. And I like to create things that are about place. How do we own place? How do we share care? And like, yeah, how do we make it fun? I was talking with Roz and my friend Ellie earlier about how charity is not sexy anymore. And like,
Sexy before. Right.
yeah, but like, it shouldn't be worthy. Sometimes I think we end up making work based on what's cool rather than our values. And I think if we led with our values and just made that fun and vibey, everything would be great. So I'm just on the road to do that. If I have to do it in the strategy or the teaching or the curating and working on programs and stuff, then I just find my way. But yeah, that's what I'm on.
Love a multi-hyphen king.
Try it, Lord.
I mean, I want to know more about why each of you, like at what point each of you felt empowered to, maybe you didn't, felt empowered to explore working independently, and why you felt like that's something that you couldn't do within the structure of a 9 to 5.
Mine, sorry. I think mine was less of a choice. It, for me, felt like it came out of this, I don't know, it feels quite privileged saying that. I'd moved countries. I went to Ibiza, I fell in love with someone, decided to move to their country. It wasn't a hardship, but I was living in a country in which I had not operated before, and I'd had a very successful career working for like 2 of the top recruitment advertising agencies here. But I also had, because I'd done it for quite a long time, I was at a point in my life where the motivation was slightly different. So I was asking myself different questions. And if I had the balls to move to a whole different country with my 2 long hands, and then I broke my leg and I spent 6 weeks in bed thinking how much I actually hated the job that I was doing. And that was the catalyst for starting a business. And I had to eat and I had to pay rent. And so I'd been doing recruitment by that stage for about 15 years. And I just thought, essentially, I'm going to ring one of my old clients and say, would you like to work with me in this way? And I think I rang about 5 of them and they were like, we really like you, but no, we don't really like recruiters. As a lot of people don't, unbelievably. And one of them said yes. And that was my first client. And I think I had 2 clients for the first year. And it wasn't all sweetness and light. And I think a lot of people do glamorize the self-employment journey, and it's not all sweetness and light. And you do have to be. I didn't go into it with a game plan, but I also didn't have a plan B. So it had to work. And it was very much a kind of like feeling my way through it. And it worked, which is why, events like this are so important. When you said, I'm answering my own question, you've literally bought your own table. And I wish I'd had that when I was starting out all of those years ago. But yeah, that was the kind of journey to me getting to freelancing, having my own business. And I guess just not kind of stopping talking about it ever since.
I come from a family where my parents are both very entrepreneurial in spirit. They're not necessarily entrepreneurs, but they get shit done. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear. But they just get shit done. And it was very inspiring to see that and know that, like, I don't have to follow a traditional path if I don't want to. But I did anyways. Like, I studied traditional-ish. Maybe not actually. It's journalism and media. That's maybe it's creative. Yeah. So I was gonna do business, and I thought that was what I was gonna do. And I didn't know you could be freelance and work for yourself. I just thought I enjoy carrying a camera and I enjoy filming things and capturing that. I think also I hated the job that I worked in. So I worked in a tech automotive company doing product marketing. And it was so dead, like, guys, so boring. And I also was like the only Black person in a sea of old white men. Like, I was in the countryside. Like, it was really, so I just was like, I can't do this. So yeah, I had been like planning to leave. And I just, like I said earlier, I didn't have I don't know. I just felt maybe, I don't know, what if something goes wrong? Like, you're always taught like you need to have a full-time job. So I thought, you know what, let me just stick this out, maybe get a part-time and then transition. But I'd been freelancing on the side for 2.5 years. I had the clients, I had savings. So it was like, just do it. And then when I got made redundant, I didn't have a plan B. So I was just like, well, this is going to have to, I'm going to have to make it work. Like, this has to make sense. I think I really leaned into community as my way of like, you know, we brought each other work, and that was kind of how I was able to sustain myself in the earlier years and now, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love you guys' story. You know, just like, let's take it. I feel like I'm so used to hearing no. Like, I have really talented parents who do their thing, but they don't like to tell me nothing, except no. So like, I've always been making my own thing, and I was lucky enough that like running my own club night and I did like this Snapchat grime karaoke campaign, getting people from Born and Bred Festival to like my club night afterwards. I had a clothing brand that I used to work with my friends all around Stokey, because like that was at the beginning of Hackney getting gentrified, and we were just making clothes about our own journeys. And I was lucky enough to turn it into a portfolio that got me into DNAD. So I went from working bar, pretty much being drunk every like 4 days a week and just throwing parties, doing my thing, to like suddenly like looking at these really beautiful decks. So I think there was like this, you know, the enamel of like starting in a new industry, in a new world, that really helped to propel me a little bit. And I just love to meet my idols. Don't do it, just don't. But like Nike was one of my idols, you know. I used to get shaved into my head and stuff. And I was working in the head office after working through these projects. And then the internships were up, and it was like the only way that you could actually get into the brand was through internships and maybe getting brought on or whatever. But this was an internship that wasn't a graduate one, because DNAD is for people who haven't gone to uni, like me. So yeah, like after the director of like socials and digital, because I reworked the digital and social strategy like 2018, sat me in the office and was like, you got something, just like come and chill. And I thought that he was offering me a job. He was offering me a freelance role. So me, like an idiot, was getting paid £160 a day for like at least like a year. But like I built all these relationships in the brand for a year, and I was just plugging people that I knew. I was like 21, I was hungry, I was outside. So people who were doing good things, I was plugging them into the brand really fast all the time, making good social content, getting everything out, and just being a bit of London in the office. So I was lucky that for a year I had this founding client, and I would say that like that is the most important thing, having like, speak to it, yeah. Like 1 or 2 founding clients is the only way I'd say to
That's the game changer for me, because it gives you, I come from a very, you know, stable salary in London, and it was a bit, I mean, I took 2/3 of a salary cut to move from Spain, but it was, I guess it's about the motivation you have in life at that time. And I decided I wanted to have a quality of life. I wanted to work with people I wanted to work with. When my job was quite corporate and I wanted to do, I do quite a lot of experimental design and immersive and a lot of cutting edge stuff where, you know, the background could be from anywhere. I work with set designers and scientists and doctors and magicians. And there aren't that many jobs which allow you to work. So I had to create a job which allowed me to work with that. And luckily, there are people like Google and Nike and Lego that need people like that, because I feel like the section of creativity that I'm interested in and that I work with or design, it's still quite new and emerging, but it's generally about being curious, but it's also about just talking a lot and being like genuinely curious. And, you know, I think there are a few people in the room that I've just genuinely had these relationships with for years. And I think that's what's allowed me to be quite successful to date, because I'm always one for, you know, have the conversation. It doesn't hurt to have the conversation. You know, that conversation might not necessarily lead to somewhere, but it might also sharpen your mind as to what you don't want. And I think that's as important as what you do want. And the more no's you get, and there's a lot to be said for being resilient as well. If you're going to be a freelancer, you need to be resilient, because you'll get so many knockbacks. And also there's, you know, there will be a sea of freelancers who you think are doing the same thing as you. Nobody's doing the same thing as you, because only you are bringing those unique experiences to the table. And I think one of the things which I bang on about is that, and I don't know if there was a question about this later, but I think a lot of people get hung up on what the product is or the service that you're selling, doing, creating. And for me, when I've worked with clients, quite often the most successful freelancers are the ones who have created a value, or, you know, they've made their thinking visible. They've shown, you know, okay, we've created this deck or this thing for whoever, and it looks great. But I think the people who are successful are the ones who can talk you the journey. What was the insight? How did you get from this to this whole beautiful thing over there? I don't want to know just about the pretty picture. I want you to take me on the whole ride, the journey. I think it's so important that people buy into like your thinking. Because like I was saying, otherwise you can not be a one-trick pony, but you'll be like, okay, this guy or this person, this girl created this piece of work and it looks lovely. But I think when you're working as a freelancer, the client, the studio, the agency, they want to be able to trust you with the team, with the client, with the ideas. And the only way you can do that is being, you know, it's about presenting your value. And that doesn't mean being articulate and polished. It just means taking somebody on the ride with you about how you got to the actual endpoint.
Yeah, I mean, on one of the points that you made earlier about doing the type of work that you liked doing, like as a freelancer, how do you balance paying the bills with not selling the soul, essentially? Like how do you go about choosing something or saying no, more importantly, to things you don't particularly want or things that don't align with you, knowing that you actually have to earn your keep in a way that's different to when you have a 9-to-5?
I feel like it's easier the longer you've been doing your job. Like when you're starting out, you might not necessarily have the luxury to say no to things. That's just when you're starting, you have to be hungry. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. And so I did a lot of free work, but I also did a lot of work that was like, I'm not going to post this, but it's going to help me pay my rent. So I think in that stage, like I didn't mind taking on a lot of jobs that maybe paid the bills but weren't in my line of work. But what I did do was invest in my own personal projects so that I could create the work that I wanted to be hired for, and then I would share that. So then when people would see the work that I post, they'd be like, oh, Jedidah does this, but the money in my account is not what I'm showing. So, and then it also depends on how much money is in my account. If I have enough, then I don't need to say yes to that job. That gives me the luxury to say no. And if I'm in a situation where actually, okay, I've got some money stacked and I've been financially wise, then I can say no to certain jobs and be more intentional about what I take on. But I do think over time, I've got the luxury now to say, actually, I don't want to do this job, or I don't want to do this, or maybe I'm more strategic with it. Maybe this job isn't going to pay me much, but I know what it's going to do for me with the network that I'm going to have, or like, I shouldn't say, but yeah, one of the jobs that I've done that has done very well on socials, I got paid peanuts for, but people wouldn't think that because it's like, it's gone crazy and it's like such a great piece of work. But I knew I was taking it for peanuts, but I knew where it would take me, and I've booked work off the back of it. So sometimes you have to be strategic as well with it.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question for you actually on that. Is like, you have quite a big social presence in that you're very consistent, you're very creative. You are, and like, you do a really good job of, like Naomi said, of like showing your process and showing your value and showing how you get to your final product. So how has, I think you've been, I mean, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like for the past 3 years, you've been very consistent. And how has that, because I've been following you for ages, and I think part of the reason we connected was because of social media. So I'd love to hear how that has impacted your work as a film director, or your career as a whole as a creator.
Sorry, the reason why I kept being really awkward is because I have been consistent and I haven't been as well. I'm consistent in bursts because my mental health is like, when you're on social media, it feels like you have to be posting consistently. And as a creative, you feel like, oh, so to be taken seriously as a creative, I have to post. Initially, and also this has all only happened this year, by the way. I started the year with like 2,000 followers. So that's all this year. But I've been posting. It's just that like initially I didn't want to share anything but my work. I felt like the industry leans too much into numbers and clout, and I hate that so much. So I was like, I'm not even going to have my face on my page. It's just going to be my work. And people would DM me like, hey, bro, like, this is really good work. And I'm like, I'm not mad. But nobody knew until like 2 years ago. Like, I posted my face for the first time in 2024. And then from then I was like, you know what? Okay, let me do this as an experiment, like a personal experiment of like, if I'm not getting, I'm booking work as me with the work that I have, but I'm not booking to the level I want to be booked for. And also when I started, there wasn't information that was readily available. I had to lean on my network and I had to figure it out for myself. And I don't think that's fair. I feel like we should be sharing information. So I just wanted to do that. So I started posting in 2024. And then I posted very consistently for a few months, and then I stopped posting for a few months, and then so I'm just on and off, like, it depends, because juggling is a lot, and so you also have to like pace yourself and do what you can do. But this year I think I just like leaned into it a little bit more, so I just will post every single day for a whole month, and then the return is mad. I don't know what's going on with the algorithm, but it's working for me. And then I won't post for like 3 months, and then I post. But I think for me, I realized that when I post just my work, might get a few likes, a few comments, but when I post how I did it, or how I got the job, what my experience was like, what it was like working with that client or this talent, people are more intrigued by that because they learn something from it. Just seeing pretty videos and pictures is like, great, thank you so much, this is lovely. But if I want to learn how to do it, then I want you to show me how to do it. So I think that's more important to me, of like taking people behind the scenes, explaining the journey, breaking down a term in the industry. I did a video on like what a PPM means, which I thought was silly, but actually it's not silly.
I still don't know.
I mean, neither.
But agencies know what a PPM is, a pre-production meeting. But as a director, you need to know what a PPM is, because they're going to book a PPM in your calendar, and if you miss that meeting, you're finished. So I just will break down certain terms in the industry that I think people might think, oh, this is basic, but it's really not, and it's very helpful to know, because when you work in the industry, you're just expected to understand. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I was really just in the corner over here. I feel like I've said for the past like couple of years, my thing is that once you start sharing, you stop searching. And it could be like sharing the post, but it's always like, if I see something interesting, like I think I met you at an event you did around Bethnal Green, essentially. See, just out here. But I mean, I share like your page with people, or like if you're looking for something and we're talking about something you're interested in, I'll share that. Like I like to share like knowledge in some way, because I think like we're all so hungry for it. So I think the social does a really good thing, but like I feel like sometimes the city it feels like crabs in a bucket. Everyone's be like, oh, a bit scared or trying to hold things, but actually like once you start sharing, more things comes to you.
I think it's also easy to share what you know. So if you start sharing things because you think people are going to like it, then that's dead. You're also going to not be consistent. But if you share your knowledge, share what you're passionate about, share your process, then it's just easy, because you're just being yourself and you're sharing information that you know you're actually providing value. Because there's a lot of content creators, but it's like, I know you just wrote a script. Like, this is not, you don't know what you're talking about. But I think if you just stay true to yourself, that helps. And to answer, because I forgot, has it helped me get more work?
I just asked how it's impacted you.
I think maybe sadly, I think people take me more seriously now, which is really unfortunate. It's sad if you really think about it.
Because it's not about your work. Well, it's about your work.
Yeah.
Because you're posting your work.
Well, I was getting the bookings before, but I think people are more like willing to pay me more, or willing to, oh, she can work with this talent because she's done it before, but she has.
They expect that you're really exposed.
Yeah.
Because they see you every.
Which is like, I don't, and that's why I said it was an experiment, which I guess the experiment, it worked, but it's just unfortunate. I think the industry does care about those things. So, but yeah, I just lean into it now more of like, I'm doing this to share the knowledge, and if it's going to help me pay my rent too, then, you know, I'm not going to say no. But I do make it clear that like, why did you want to hire me? Is it because of this, or is it because of this project that I worked on, and because of the way I approach my work? So yeah.
I think it would be.
I was just going to say, that's the shift that's happened in the past like 2-3 years, maybe, right? Where the follower count means as much for everyone on set as it does for like the talent. It's been like quite intense. And I don't know, I feel like that's why relationships are so important. You know what I mean? It's like it can be really goofing. Like, as you were saying that, all I was like, oh, can we add like a boot camp to 10K on Mad Academy? Because like, it is definitely a real thing. But I think also having relationships with people who are doing the work, who care about hitting the same like viewpoint and North Star that you have is also equally as important. And I have like, no one talks about the involuntary work that you do to kind of build that same sense of reverence that you might get from a follower account. Which is like, I have meetings with people that I've been wanting to work with for like 3-4 years. Like, I'll have meetings with them every quarter or so, just to chat about what's cool, what's interesting, what challenges are popping up, like, and to map out like an ecology around what I'm doing and what they're doing, where the intersection is. Because realistically, I'm not trying to be here to just do that one job with you. Like, it's about relationships. And like, it has been a difficult time, especially as people have moved towards like follow accounts and stuff as well. But like, I'm not going to pivot to be a creative director who's doing styling because it's not my jam. Maybe I could do it. It's not my thing. I'm not out here trying to just pimp myself online. And I think it's actually just, important to really like hone in on those relationships so you can survive while things get a bit like insecure, because they've been insecure for like 2 years. It's been quite nuts. But I think genuinely just holding like, some importance to your work and like mapping out like long-term projects as well. Like I teach on a unit once a year in the dead of winter when there's no work. Thank God. Like, I'm working on a youth program that like is once a month and pays me throughout a sequence of 7 or 8 months. And that is just in the educator side of things that I do, not the strategy or the like curatorial stuff really. So it's like, I think really think about how your relationships and how the length of the projects pan out to give you a sense of security, because like it's the Wild West out here. It's actually the Wild West in that sense.
I agree with that, but I think Jadid said as well, is it this or is there an element of being quite strategic about it? Obviously, having done recruitment for such a long time, and the last few years have probably been the most turbulent in most of the designers that I've spoken to, but it does quite often surprise me that sometimes there isn't really a game plan. I think a game plan is quite important in terms of your own sanity, because you've got people, there are jobs that are coming up. It's whether you're freelance or permanent. I think it's staying true to yourself and what is it that you want to do and you want to create. If you're just responding to the market, then I think you're going to have quite a low hit rate. But if you're thinking, okay, what are the top, and I say go big, what are the top 200 brands, agencies, studios that I'd like to work for? How can I begin to have an Excel spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, of the marketing directors, the creative directors? How can I begin to build up a relationship with them? And then at least you feel like you're in control of what you're doing. This is not a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet here, people. You have to put the work in. There is no I'm just going to go in there and smash it. That's a myth, which I think is very easily perpetuated. But I think there is a way that you can claim back some autonomy by thinking and being intentional about what is the value that you're bringing and where would it serve purpose, and does that serve the marketing director in this place? And you might connect with them and they don't connect with you, but maybe you start liking their likes, and they're just more organic ways of, I think, building up a relationship. But that will take 3 months, 6 months, a year. And I think if you are thinking of going freelance, and that's something that you probably should consider, where are the next 3 months, 6 months and 12 months of salary coming? So I think it has to be something which is quite organic, but quite considered and thoughtful. Think about the money, because there are a lot of people who have been non-stop busy, but I think they're the ones that have generally got a process behind what they're doing. There's no kind of like throwing it out in the wind and seeing what floats. It has to be more structured than that, which is not necessarily fun, but I think it's true.
Oh, I feel like, especially right now, why everything feels like tied to aesthetics. Like they have an output that they just reach, so then they're busy. I keep thinking about freelance and how actually it's like some medieval term, because a lance, like Lancelot, that's a hired gun.
Never thought
that is a hired gun. You are a hired gun on the streets with no lord. Like, that is literally what freelance means. And it's crazy out there. Like, and Right. And it's serving certain people well who can like really like push things. But then it's hard when like I think a lot of people who want to go freelance now, escape their 9 to 5s, are just looking for spaces that don't like suck the being out of them. Right. And it's just hard because like you're gonna end up having to do work as a hired gun, and trying to find that balance is just
You also, sorry, this is so off topic, but you also don't want to get typecast. And then you get booked for the same thing, unless that's like the niche you've carved out. But if you end up doing something and then someone's like, oh yeah, they do this, and that is, because you just don't want to be typecast. So also just try, I personally diversify so that people know like, okay, she can do this and she can do this, and otherwise you'll just find yourself.
And you can see that in your, in all of your
thank God.
No, you can. And I was saying even before I met you, I was really excited to meet you because, and I was saying to Oliver as well, like when I look at these portfolios, there is a very strong sense of style, which is great. And there's a philosophy and a value, but not that can't be applied to anywhere. You can see where the value that they are bringing their input and their game and their life experience. And that's really quite an interesting challenge to navigate. When I say that's probably one of the biggest challenges to navigate. How do you bring your whole self and your personality, but not get typecast so you're so small, but also have your own print, but you can work for bigger brands and show, because, you know, a lot of the time I will get a job in, or I used to get a job in, and they say, I need somebody that has created this particular thing. As a designer, you should be able to turn your hand to pretty much anything. A lot of the time, a client will want somebody who's worked in this particular field. But then, you know, maybe it's how you presented the work and how you've told the story as well. So I think it works kind of both ways.
I think that's like, as a creative, something that I probably struggle with as well, is defining yourself when in this day and age, you probably have about 15 hyphenates.
Yes.
It was like you're a director plus artist plus illustrator plus strategist plus, like, as a freelancer, especially from the recruitment perspective, is it better, or how do you better present yourself as a multi-hyphenate without looking confused?
This is an interesting question. And you said earlier on today, and I was just like, I was right. You said I come from a copy background, or I lean more towards the copy. When I looked through your Instagram, I was like, I think I have a job for you, but I'm not 100. I was like, I think you come from a copy, but I think you've shown that you come from the copy, and that was obvious to me. So I would think if you have your multi-hyphenate and you have one thing, which is your thing, that's the thing that you lead with. You're allowed to do all of the other things, but I think they're part of like the trinkets that you're bringing to the table. Because if this is the one thing that you shine with, you know, I guess, you know, what you could do, you could be a one-woman agency, but ultimately, if you're going into a bigger agency, they're probably going to hire you for this particular skill, and then you get in and you go, like, well, actually, I can do this, this, and this. So, you know, it depends whether you're hiring, whether you're working for a small to medium business, which needs someone that can be the Swiss knife person, or if you're freelancing and you're going into an agency which needs somebody who can cross the I's and dot the T's. Both realities exist. You need to be able to speak to both realities. But I would say lead with whatever is your North Star, that shining thing that you can talk about. And then when you're describing the case study or the story, I also solved this client's challenge by doing this or doing this, and talking about, you know, the value that you brought to the project rather than the services. You're not a menu. You're not a library of lists. You're a fully person with a great skill in this and some other skills. And some of those other skills are going to be stronger. You know, you might, like the people who do After Effects and video editing, they generally lean towards one or the other. Lead with what your best skill is and your anchor skill, I call them. And then you have like your complementary skills as additional, I think.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's exactly what I do. And it works in that, like, video editing is my bread and butter. Like, that is like just churns in the money. Social content, don't really post that, but it's good for that. And directing is what I lead with, because then that's like where I want to be known more. That's the work that I really want to get hired for on a larger scale. And then there's obviously the smaller jobs behind the scenes that if you know, word of mouth. So I think all of those things are valuable. But I also think if you are going to be a multidisciplinary creative, which I think is good, everything should be aligned. Because if you're doing photocopying here, and then you're directing there, and then you're a sports person. It's like, how do they connect? You can do those things, but how do they connect? Like, it should be seamless. I think that's worked out for me, where people see what I do and they're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I didn't mention earlier, but I'm also the founder of, I used to be the founder of We Are Soul, which was a music and art platform. And then I shut that down to focus fully on Control and Create, which is a creative development platform for women who want to level up and learn more in the creative industry. That makes so much sense for me as a director and a video editor. So it was easy to pitch that. And people then believe that I know what I'm talking about because I've lived it. So I think if you're going to be a multidisciplinary and do a lot of things, just also think about how they tell the bigger story of who you are as a person and how they all link. And then you can upsell to clients. Like, I'm a director, but I also edit. And I also have this community. Like, I've done work with clients where I've creative directed and I've been doing the curation for Control and Create and brought my community in. So yeah, I think if they all connect, then you're...
feed into each other, though, don't they? It's not like, oh my God, you're also a librarian.
Yeah. Then people are just confused.
But then how do you like... Sorry, you need to read.
I was just going to say, like, I feel like you can be a multi-hyphenate, and I feel like I've always been multi-hyphenate. I'm ADHD autistic, so I'm just all over the place anyway, until I'm not. And then, I don't know, my multi-hyphenateness has always been to an output. So, like, even when I was, like, working in agency, I had a little studio on the side. It used to be called Play Nice, now it's called Freeform. So you'll see the different strokes to the way that I think and work with people and, like, do things with people through the work that I do here. And you only really get paid for the work that you put out. So I'm constantly trying to make that little bucket, high production value, great evaluations, make sure that I've got things that show that I'm not just doing this for fun. This isn't starting small. I'm like genuinely thinking about impact or other things. And so like, that's my thing over there. When I go to agency, I talk about the brand stuff I've done, or if I'm in art, I talk about the art stuff I've done. But like, you have to kind of recognize you can't bring it all. Yeah.
How do you price yourself? Like, because you're... I'm deep inhale. Because you're coming with such a variety of experience, I think you don't want to sell yourself short by only pricing yourself as one thing when you know that you're bringing more of a wealth of knowledge than the average one thing person. So like, how do you strike that balance and price yourself accordingly without feeling, I guess, that you're overpriced?
You want a slow yes.
Ooh, you want a slow yes. But I rarely be getting them, you know?
What do you mean?
Like, you want someone to think about the figure that you gave to them. Yeah, a little bit. Like, it's scary, but like, honestly...
If they say yes quickly, you could
I just did a global project this year. I won't even explain. Yeah, it was all great. It's flown out. I could have charged 5 times more than I did. And like, I had to have a wash up about it afterwards, which is obviously like, oh, I'm being professional, but it's like, I've been swindled. Whether there was a flight involved or not, you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, like it just happens. You're always at risk, I feel. But it's great to have someone to advocate for you as well. I was going
to say that, because I think we talked about this earlier. And I think I can see how this could happen. And I mean, I think anyone could be subject to this. And it's very important that you kind of have your game plan. Like, when I first started doing recruitment, I used to go into every meeting with an agenda, and people would be like, why are you going in there with an agenda? We're just going to have a nice chat. And I'd be like, not for me. I'm not having, because I can talk. No, but I can talk. And most designers are creative. So I'll go in and we'll have a nice chat. That is of no commercial use to me whatsoever. I've come here to find you this person, and I need to know, what's the situation here? What caused this? What was the catalyst for this change in your business? And how can I answer that? Yeah. And that's essentially what you need to do. So yes, you're selling your services, but what is the value that you created for this company? And so that's a very difficult question. And, you know, there will be people who are benchmarking this and benchmarking that, but you can only do that research yourself, because what you're offering is actually quite unique. So the only answer to that is you going in a wormhole of Glassdoor, AI, all of that. And, you know, America's going to tell you 3 times the salary to the UK, and, you know, the Netherlands will be this and Germany will do that. But I think there has to be, you know, what do you, Nate, stand for? And one thing I did with my coach is that I looked at people who, I started off calling them the competition. Now I call them the category peers. And you look at what they're doing and what are the differences between you and them, and how would you imagine that they are pricing themselves? And there are ways to do that you find out. And I think that's a really good starting place to give you an idea of what your value is worth, but also to decide what is the value that you're actually bringing. Because I think that must be a massive question when you're starting out. Like, you know, there are loads of freelance designers or loads of freelance creators. What is it that you're doing that is different? And unless you look at the people who are in your category or your competition, then what is it that you're bringing that is different? What is your, you know, maybe it's that you allow somebody, you know, the freedom to do this, or that you've got lots of experience in this. But if that's the thing, then lead with that and price yourself accordingly.
I'm not scared to ask people how much they make. I don't know why people don't like talking about money in this UK. I want to know, because then I know, am I charging enough? Am I not charging enough? And here's how much I made, so you can charge more or less or whatever. Like, you know, I will ask. And I've honestly been very pleasantly surprised, or also unfortunately surprised, on how much my counterparts are making, triple what I'm making. Like, I was talking to someone, she is a white female director, and we just catch up. Like, hey girl, how are you doing? And oh my God, you did this thing for Sony. How much did you make? Yeah, it was good. She was like, I bet you made a lot of money. I was like, yeah, it was pretty good for me. It was all right. And then she was like, yeah, I made like 40 grand on this. I said, 40, did you say like, wait, hold on. 40 grand. She's like, yeah, I just felt. I said, wait, what? Like, she made like triple what I made. And I said, hold up, I have representation too. Like, what is happening? And I think if I didn't know that was possible for someone at my level, then I was like, cool, I need to be charging more. Like, this is, if we don't talk about these things, how are we supposed to know? So I am not afraid to ask. I really be asking people, how much did you make? We should be talking about these things more, because that's how people get away with paying you less. Also, don't be scared to ask the brand, like, how much, what's your budget? Because sometimes they want you to say less so that they can be like, oh my God, you can save 5 grand on this job. So yeah, and so for me, I think my way of pricing myself is, obviously, what's the industry standard for that service? What I charge for video editing is not what I would charge as a director. It's not what I would charge as a curator, which is not what I would charge as a creative director. And then also, is there a demand for me? Like, are they coming to me? Like, they really want to work with me, or am I having to pitch? If they're coming to me, then I know I have leverage, so I can charge a bit more. Or I can, like, you know, see if there's other perks and benefits to it. Like, maybe I can bring in my other services and they can hire me for that too. And then also, how big is the brand? Do they have the money to be paying me 5 grand, or is it more of a £500 thing? And then maybe actually this is a passion project. So it depends on a few different variables. And then, do I have the skill level that I'm charging for? Because not to say that you can't charge whatever you think you should charge, please go ahead. But if you know you've only got 1 year's experience and you're charging tens of thousands of pounds for somebody that's worked 10 years, it doesn't make sense. You're going to get turned down. So I think also, what's your skill level? Is there a demand for you? What's the client size? And what's the industry standard for that service? That's kind of how I go about it.
I think sometimes, like, asking for, or like, it's like what feels like begging but isn't begging is like trying to get paid as freelancer, because it feels like sometimes you see yourself and the client as two people. So you're thinking like, oh, am I going to put them off? But you're a business, they're a business. And I think as a freelancer, it's easy to fall into like a very like, you're taking it personally, like, I'm shy.
I would say, and I have this conversation with a lot of people, and they'd be like, what rate? So most agencies, studios, brands will have a day rate range. And I will advise people accordingly. But if someone's just come from a full-time job, they quite often don't know how to price themselves. And they'll be like, well, you know, I'm a creative director, I only want $350 a day, but I know the client's £500 a day. If I believe that person can fully execute that job, I'll be like, go for the, you know. No, I've never had a client go, that person is too expensive, I don't want to work with them. They will say, that person is over our budget, could you speak to them about coming down a bit? And you know, then it's a conversation. Clients are people. They're not like these ethereal characters. You can talk to them. They can say yes or they can say no. It's a negotiator. You know, your portfolio should be like the shop door welcome them in, have a little look-see round, then start a conversation. But, you know, you've got to start somewhere in terms of like how you're valuing and how you're perceiving yourself. But like I said, no client has gone, oh my God, that's absolute bollocks. I'm not going to pay that. Tell them to get out, and how they've darkened my door. They'll be like, okay, I really like their work. This is what we need for this particular job. Can we have a conversation? And lay cards on your table. However, if someone, you know, I've had clients that have gone to me from the get-go before they've even spoken to me, can we have a discount? I would always say no. Because those people who start with the discount conversation, they're always the ones that come and bite you in the ass, and you will be working 16 hours and nobody says thankful. And you just be like, I saw the red flags. I should have dusted out a long time ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my advice on that.
And with that, I feel like also though, when I get a bit scared, I might like hit them with a high range, like
Yes.
somewhere crazy. And they're like, oh, but I am interested in like project fees for the right project. You know what I mean? If it's the right project and you have a project fee, come back to me with that and we can talk. Because I think everyone knows that like consistent work beats just this one-off like thing. So I think even there's small gestures like that that you can do in conversation sometimes to just be like, yeah, I'm expensive, but like, you know, I like to chat. I'm here for it.
I think it's interesting. I feel like instinctively, most people will probably, when they get nervous, go with the lower rate. But you,
and then you get a fast yes, and you go and you come off
You
the call.
regret it after. You regret it. It stings so badly afterwards. Like you just get more and more resentful the longer the relationship goes on. And I think, you know, like I agree with what you're saying. There are areas that you can add. Like I have a meeting with a couple of clients maybe once or twice a year about the value of the market or what's happening with. But then when they have like a really difficult creative director job or something that's really difficult, I'll be the person that because they might do a lot of that stuff themselves. But ultimately, people who are looking for people who are difficult to find, their job is not looking for people who are difficult to find. Their job is running this elite business. Mm-hmm. But they know, because I've been doing that's where they can come to me and I can add value. So it's not like we're speaking on the phone every day, but I know that my value is here and we might speak twice a year. But we've built up a relationship for the last 5 years and they might give me one job and that job is worth X amount. And then be like, that was a very nice, healthy month. Thank you very much.
speaking of building relationships, there was something you said earlier about like liking what they like and trying to get on the radar. But I think nowadays, as a freelancer, as a creative, you're really focused on output and like putting yourself out there, which is great, obviously. But how do you, or like as a recruiter, how do you place like distribution of value in terms of how people approach you? Would you advise that people put stuff out there and show themselves? Or would you advise that alongside that they try to build one-on-one personal relationships with potential buyers?
Both, 100%. So I would say I've been doing recruitment for about 20 years. And for the first half of that, so before I had my own business, well, no, actually, for the first probably half of me, so like all of my relationships have come from, I've been doing recruitment for such a long time that all of my CEOs and founders are the people that I hired as juniors 15, 20 years ago. And that's a beautiful thing because they're people you've watched, like, people who are working on Beats by Dre at AKQA that now have their own studios, and you're lucky because you helped them to realize their vision. And that is an amazing thing. But then I got to a point I was thinking, you know what, I'm doing quite well at this. Imagine if I just showed the world what I was actually doing. There might be other people that were interested in that. So I think if you don't put yourself out there, you're only shooting yourself. It's quite a privileged position to be in, to not have to do that. But also, like, sometimes when I'm recruiting for people and they don't have, like, a lot of my activity goes on LinkedIn, and there are a lot of people who are looking for a job but they don't have their profile or their telephone number or I'm just like, are you playing? Because why would you not have this information which is going to help somebody to have an insight into what you can offer them? So I think if you have, first of all, you have to have a profile. You have to fill in your profile. You have to say what you're good at. What is the type of work that you want to get? You have to you have to think about who is the person that I want to work with and for, and almost create a persona. Can't seem to say that word. And speak to that person when you're writing. And I think it becomes a lot easier to attract those kind of clients. But having relationships with people, I mean, that's just like a no-brainer. And not just ringing or having contact with those people when you've got something to sell. I think it's about genuinely being curious in people. I think one of the reasons why I've managed to be, I'm actually just a talker, and I want to know what happened with that story you told me about the kid, or what happened with this project that was about to go tits up, or whatever. I genuinely want to know what happened. And I think, you know, just being a good and a nice person, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I think that people can feel your vibe, and there's that whole thing, people buy into people. And I think even when you come to networking events like this, I don't go and I think, oh, there's Aisha, what can you do for me? I'm like, how did this happen? And when you said to me, well, I'm answering my own question, I was like, oh man, that's beautiful, I get it. So I think if you can do that on a grander scale with social media and show that element of your personality, I think you attract the like back.
This is going to be my last question before I pass over to Q&A, so have your question ready. But it would be good to know from all three of you, if you were to give a piece of advice to yourself just before you chose to stay independent or you chose to follow your self-employment passion, what would that be?
Dance on TikTok. No, I'm joking.
I'm joking.
Real though.
No, really, if I knew. No. No, please. I definitely won't be dancing on TikTok. I just think you need to have like unshakable belief in yourself. I think a lot of the reasons why maybe I had moments where I fell off, like, you know, stopped posting or thought I would go back to full time, or, you know, was crying because I was struggling. I lacked that unshakable belief. And I noticed when I have that belief, anything is possible. Even if it's not possible, anything is possible. Do you know what? To me. And like those are the moments where I'll sit down and strategize and create stuff like Control and Create and make space for other women, or, you know, create a platform like We Are Soul, or do talks like this. I just think having that self-confidence is something I really could have done with a lot more from an earlier stage. I always had it, but I think having that consistently is difficult. But it's possible. And I think that's where I've got into, because I've just told myself, like, you can do it. You've done it, so you can do it. So yeah, maybe that would be my advice.
I'm still thinking.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
I think I said something to you earlier, I can't remember. I think it was something like, it's to do with not waiting to be perfect or to be the finished article. I think it was competence breeds confidence. It's a cycle. And I think a lot of people wait till they have the perfect thing to feel confident enough. But competence and confidence are a cycle. One feeds into each other. One doesn't exist without each other, but you just have to actually get started. And I think if you spend time waiting for it to be perfect, it's like the day that you feel disciplined enough to go to the gym. It never happens. You just got to get up and just get on with it. And then you feel better once it's done. And that feeling just grows exponentially. So I think that'd be mine.
That was really good, boss, Nelly.
Bars all around. I love it. Do you know what? Sadly, my younger self, I'm like, do you know what? He was all right. He was doing fine. Because I feel like I was very lucky to just start just straight up at 21, and I was just on it, and I was hungry. And I think that like that eludes all of us these days. I think post-pandemic, everyone's tired. And to be honest, I did a project post-pandemic that is still my North Star, and it burnt me out to in a way that like I've just found a new pace from. I'm never trying to be like, I think before then I was trying to be in everyone's decks. I would love when someone can present something to me and it's got my work in it. I'd be like, yeah, I know. I was so excited by that. And I think it's really important to get there. And I'd say that more like, I'd probably want to give words of wisdom to my like just post burnout self. And to anyone else who's just like joking and working really hard because it's a tough time, to just like allow it to be imperfect a little bit, like, and to just show up more, like just be there, make it, run it. It will grow, and just make the work you want to see. Yeah.
Is it cheating if I say one more?
Go on.
It's just so important, and I live by this, but it's to be so intentional about the people you surround yourself with. Everything, but the people. Yeah. If you have people who don't believe in you, you will slowly start to realize you no longer believe in yourself. And if you have people who so into you and they're plugging you, connecting, you said you connect people all the time. That is so important. Like 90% of my work is from friends, word of mouth, connections that I have. Like, it's not from social media, it's not from, it's from word of mouth and those relationships. So I think be so intentional about the people you keep around you, from your personal life to your working relationships. That is like a game changer, I think. I feel like all of us could say that. So definitely that.
Well, thank you guys so much. I'm going to pass over to the audience. Any questions, feel free. Just raise your hand and I'll come over and give you the microphone.
Yeah, don't be shy.
Let me show you. There we go. Oh, okay, we got two. Hold on, I just ask how much. After you, okay? I can talk about you. I'll talk about me. No, let's not start by. I'm not direct. What's you? You know, that's it.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Tony. Thank you for this support. My question is, what's your philosophy behind documenting presenting the value or in previous projects to future clients?
To who? All of us?
Yeah, everyone. Yeah. I'd love to hear your perspectives.
I think that there's value in that. I mean, clients hire you because they can trust you. So I don't think you should have every project since you did A-level art or photography or whatever. But I think the projects which you feel like you had a particular impact on, or you changed the game, or there was, maybe it's that actually this was a project where something went really wrong, but you've put it in there because you can talk about what the lesson you learned from it was. But I think if you're picking any portfolio, you need to be really intentional about the pieces that you're putting in there. And I want to know what the brief was, what the conversation was, what your specific role was within the team. What ideas did you bring to it? What ideas did you kill? I think they're all really valuable, but I think they have to be carefully chosen for specific reasons. Is it because this is the work that you want to do? Is it because this is work that you want to go in? There's a lot of questions I feel are around that. But yeah, definitely I would make sure that you're doing it in some capacity. But the value, I think, comes from what the intention of, the work that you're trying to get or where you're trying to take it.
I mean, I use social media as my medium for like the work that I've done in the past, sharing it. I don't necessarily like bring it up in meetings because I also feel like usually they've done a deep dive into me as well. But the last 2 or 3 jobs I've been booked for have been because of the work that I've posted and how I did it. And they've told me that, like, they've put me in the deck or they'll let me know that they saw this and like, okay, we'd like you to create something like this and talk us through how you did it. So I think for me, it's more just like also something to keep me consistent with my work and to remember like, okay, and I can also use my work as a reference point. Like, all right, I remember I did it this way. So that's always helped me. But I think, yeah, social media is my medium for that. And if it comes up in conversation, I'll discuss it, but I don't necessarily put it in a deck and like pitch and say, this is how I did it, unless they ask. Yeah.
I would say like that's hard for me because I be getting into the philosophy these days and I'm like, ooh, who am I? What is this? What are we doing? I would say my philosophy lives more in the work itself and just why I'm doing it and being really value driven. And I'd say when it comes to like how you're presenting it to people, that's work. You know what I mean? And I think like there's weird things. I think over the past 3 years, people have become really obsessed with like visual cultures in a different way and how it's presented back to them. So making sure that that's like really captured well in a project and documented somewhere is really important. I'd say that like a lot of people, if you work in a purely creative sense and you're pitching purely creative, they want to see work that's happened in the past year, 2 years. Otherwise, they're a bit like, what's this? And then I think personally, because I have work that's for the art context, where they're like, oh, what does this mean for the archive? Like, how are we impacting people? Da 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 da. I have like a portfolio that shows the work and the aesthetics, but the thinking of it and an evaluation in the back if you care. And then like commercial work, to be honest, I'd be doing commercial work just to pay the bills at the minute. I care about it when the client cares. But yeah, I don't know. Right now, I'm more focused about like, okay, I've done this one project where I like completely refurbished a basketball court and it went around Europe and now it's everywhere. Or like this project that speaks about turning like urban spaces into a garden, things where I know where I've done things that are like, you didn't do that in your commercial world. Like people hadn't thought about things like that in a way. So I'm trying to work out where my impact is where my heart is, because then if you're lucky, you get in the room and have a conversation about the project. If you're not, they probably weren't for you anyway. So yeah, I think the social media thing, I need to do that next. We were talking about that earlier. It's like this the camera thing and just actually genuinely being like, sharing the process, people care. And it is important for people to see your light. So I have no advice there. I'm going to be learning, hopefully. But yeah, I think that's what I got to share on that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. It's been brilliant so far. I'd love to ask a question around sort of personal skills. What terrifies me, if I'm doing freelance, is the whole being a new person. All the time. It's constantly, there's a book, you got to make friends, be part of the team. How have you found that your experience? Like, maybe you were really young, like straight freelance, and many of us been redundant, you can freelance that way, it's terrifying. What's your advice around sort of how to be that new person? Just get in and try out high value right and shop, because it's not like you get hard to bank up, right? Your high expertise come in.
I don't think I ever gave, I didn't give people the impression I was new. You know, like that whole era of like aspiring this. I never did that. I literally one day put director in my bio, and I was a director because I said I was a director. And all I had done was like my own personal project. Like, that's it. And I think every time I would get booked for things, I would just speak with confidence. I might have been like the 5 minutes before messaging my best friend, like, I'm panicking, like, I don't know, I can't breathe. And then I'll jump on the call like, hey guys, like, and then they just would be like, oh yeah, wow, you come across so confident. So I think it's more like fake it till you make it. And then one day I just was that. So I think if you come across as someone who believes in yourself and you know what you're bringing to the table, they're also going to see you as that as well. And yeah, scrap the whole aspiring thing. You're already doing it. You already have the skills. So if you just move with that, then it will work out. That's how it worked out for me anyways.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm trying to know myself.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I never really had to do that because I was working remotely for myself. But I guess it's in the sense that whenever I met a new client, I was always talking about what I'd done and, being, I guess, owning that space and being intentional about that rather than beginning it, because I was only beginning it from the sense of it was now my own business, but I'd been doing exactly the same thing. So it's like a rebrand. But I'd been walking those shoes, and I guess that's why, I was lucky that people went with me. But it wasn't like I did the whole new person thing. I was just like, this is what I've been doing. Now I'm just under a different label. So
I'd say like I'm trying to get better at just knowing myself with it as well. Because it's like, I know I can do big groups or I can do like 3 or 4 people. So I do those, and I genuinely just like real conversations about like what you're interested in, why you're making yourself, what things exciting you right now. Like we had one earlier that was really great. I just move with that to get over that anxiety of being in a space, because you're there for a reason. There's a lot of just knowing that you're there for a reason and that you just got to live with that and move into it. So I'd say that's really important. And then there was another bit of the question. It was about, it's like being in a new space and just going at it.
Do you mean like your peers or like the clients?
So in advertising marketing, because I know strategists coming, you just suddenly are the new person, and literally the new person every year. Get the energy to be like, no, I'm pretty good at this, even though you might bang yourself and just come in and sit down, new team, new agency, new culture, new nuances, and you just get in. I don't know, for me, permanent jobs always taking about 6 months to really pretty much to go. You could be 21 and straight in and nervous, or a year and equally still going to be just as hard.
It's a bit difficult post-pandemic because like people will be working from home and stuff. But I was just making friends in every department pre-pandemic, and like I just feel like that's really key. You need to like, and I think one thing that maybe we should have spoke to a bit more is just the voluntary work that goes into all this stuff. There's so much just getting to know people and their motivations and what they're trying to get out of stuff, or like where things have frictions or work easy or not. And just really just trying to like make it fun. Like ultimately, we're taking ideas, like, you know, we get paid to dream in this space, and we treat it like it's the craziest thing because someone's put like an ad spend behind it, and it's like, we're just dreaming. So whatever's going to build the best psychological safety in the group, whatever's going to create good space for everyone to just be like making the work, dreaming the work, and Xing out the people who are just moving mad, I think is really important. So I just try to spend time getting to know my surroundings. I think I always look at things like an ecology, and I was thinking earlier when we talked about the like multi-hyphenate thing as well, it's like there's this barrier of like Peru and the Amazon, and like both ecosystems are so crazy and so vast and so powerful, but it's only on the border where they both mix that you start to get the real magic. And I feel like no matter whether it's the work, whether how you're looking at your practice, or how you're trying to connect with people that you have to work with, because everything we do is with people, you kind of have to like try and find the magic in that little border.
It also helps that everybody's figuring this out. Like, even the people who've been doing it for 10 years, everybody's like probably having a strategy meeting to like, so how do we figure out this idea? People at the higher up. So I think it helps to just be like, you know what, we're all just figuring it out. It's cool. And then when you come to events like this as well, don't just come and leave, like leave with people's numbers, messages, contacts, whatever, and actually follow up with them if there's alignment, obviously, and if it's not forced. But like every room you go into, leave with a connection that you can build upon. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
It was just following up on that actually, because I had some quite good advice recently from a mentor, and it's about knowing what your personal brand story is. So if you are going into new spaces, new companies for the regular basis, just having a bit of a story about yourself as to why you got to where you are now, and then it's kind of an easy thing that you can just learn to say off the bat. And people are like, oh yeah, I know that person, I get why you're here. So it's like, you know, I got redundant, but then it turned out that I got the best job ever and I did all this. Everyone's like, oh wow, great. Just have a little personal story to have about you, and where you got to where you got. Even Jake, like I was 21 and Nike, whatever, it's like, oh shit. You know, everyone's got their personal story. So just figuring out what that is for you is a great piece of advice I got going on. And what does your personal, you know, the areas of expertise or the things that you bring, just kind of working that into a little. Yeah, that was a piece of advice I did give. I didn't say it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. It's like,
You bet that. Just come up with it.
so I mean, this is a question for you. I've been really fundamental in my career, very early on, especially, and I've asked you questions often. I don't know what to do. And I've heard you all speak about how we navigate the freelance world and, like, you know, take on projects just to pay the bills, and we may not like it. We'll take it on for different reasons. But I'm more so curious around the structure around freelancing and navigating the space, because for me, it's been freelancing for a number of years. It sometimes can feel like you're just taking on one project after the next to pay the bills, to pay the next. It's like, oh, it's just kind of like I'm just taking on projects to pay the bills, and maybe you like one, but you're still burnt out, or like it's kind of this never-ending cycle that you find yourself in. And I think that's maybe the appeal of going full time, because at least then you know that aspect of things is covered. So I'm actually more curious around the structure. What informs your structures as you're navigating the space? I feel like I've only just started to figure out the structure that works for me as a freelancer, or as somebody who's now running her own business. But I'm more so curious around your structures. What's defining your structures? And also, beyond taking on projects to pay the bills, what does growth look like for you within your structure?
That is an amazing question. And I think probably only one that I have figured out recently. And I'm not saying I actually do have it figured out. That sounds like a lot, but I don't think, I mean, what does boring mean? I've got clients who are really interesting and they have really tiny budgets. And I've got clients that are really big clients that I've worked with for years that pay, you know, bigger fees. And I think it's really about finding sounds really cheesy, the beauty in everything. But really, because with some clients, the work might not be the most gratifying, but the people and the relationships and the people that I'm working with and the messages that these companies are sending out, that's what kind of makes it exciting for me. And I can see the value of finding the right person to add like momentum to that mission. So I have those clients who are, maybe paying bigger fees, and I will make sure that I am, keeping in contact with those clients or trying to develop more of those type of clients. Because if they're paying a bigger fee, that allows me the freedom to then take on the more sexy projects, because that you've got like 3 to 6 months worth of salary. So there's a lot to be said for those higher value, maybe more boring jobs, because they allow you to actually pursue the things which are your passions. Because it might, quite a lot of the time when I'm doing lecturing, and some students say, I just want to create art, which is great. I'm sure everybody does, but art is not necessarily going to pay the bills. You do have to balance the commercial with the creative. So for me, it's making sure that I've got, I don't know, maybe 40 to 60% of the clients who, I don't like the term boring clients, because I don't think they are boring. I think, like I said, you can find something interesting in them, but one definitely has to feed into the other. I don't think one exists. I think it's quite idealistic and romantic if you think that one exists without the other. And for you, I mean, I think you've managed to navigate that quite well from where I'm sitting.
I'd say I had a crazy time this year. The freelancing thing was insane the beginning of the year. Like the first 5 months of this year, honestly wiped out everything. And that point of being hand to mouth is just so real for so many people. It pulls you away from any idea of even being the artist, pulls you away from the idea of even working. And actually it compromises your ability to work, because you end up working on things that you resent. And because you're freelance and you're only as good as your last job, you're just done. It's it feels like game over. I'd say the first 5 months this year were quite techie. Even when things were great, like I said, I was getting flown out somewhere, they're still finessing me. My bills are still high. Things are still moving. Life is still there. And I think everyone's trying to maintain an idea of where they're at. I would say, if you're in that moment, my trick has been, and literally this period for me ends on Friday, thank God. This is 2 months, 3 months of just drugging. Not gonna lie, everything that I'm able to do, I've been putting into work over the past couple of months. So I've been lecturing, youth projects. I'm very lucky, I've been in spaces talking to people that I think are so amazing and having really generative, real conversations. And so more beautiful conversations like this have come about. So I've been conversating, I've been teaching, I've been doing the lecturing, and then I've also been doing strategy. But knowing full well that some of these strategy clients who will offer me the money I need aren't in it the way that I would love them to be, for my heart to be in it. We're working from home, baby. We're just delivering the work and delivering it well, but just not in a way where I have to engage with something that might feel extractive. And I think it's important to have these moments where you kind of just have to almost recoil, just to max out quickly. But now I've got August as a time of just dreaming and doing things that I completely care about and aren't work related. And then it just feels like restart. So I think sometimes it's work out how your energy is going to work so that it doesn't spoil relationships. Work out how you can max out what you have to give and to offer so that it does feel like it's supportive. And then just get to it for a season and know that it is literally a season, especially the way that things are now, because even the clients are moving like the Wild West. They'll just be playing in your face and try exploit. It's it is a market. You are freelance. You are a lance. You are a hired gun. So that's just where I've been at for some honesty this year. I feel like freelancing just taught being mad from Friday. But it's fun at the same time. I think there's something real about being raw. I have a couple of friends who've just made it now, and it's actually so crazy because just they're also kind of desensitized. There's no hunger. You need a bit of bite. You need a bit of adversity. So just remember, it's going in the memoir. Just stay out here and just work hard. Play nice. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jada. I have been freelancing for quite a while. I do like art, illustration, design. I also work in advertising. And my question to you guys is, how has your definition of success changed over the course of your career? And also, does like the idea of work-life balance, like how big of a role has that played in that as well? Because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Hey, Jada. I thought it was you. We spoke last week. Love your work, by the way. Really, really interesting. For me, I think since having a kid, it's changed massively. Because, so when I first started doing recruitment, I was funnily, for the first 10 years, I only did freelance recruitment, which meant I just hired freelance designers, which meant that basically a client will ring you on a Friday and say, I need somebody to start on Monday, and I wouldn't stop working until I had found that person. And that was fine when I didn't have a kid or a life that I have now, but I no longer want to live like that. So I cut back on the amount of freelance work I do, and I work on mainly doing consulting about how people are building their teams or what the company needs, or permanent jobs. So it's a longer term game, because then that allows me to structure my time in a way that, you know, a client's emergency ruins my weekend. You know, one time I had a client who's like, I need somebody for mat leave on a Monday. And I was like, when that person was getting bigger for the last 6 months, what did you think was going to be the end point of this story? And that is really a very lack of planning story, which meant that it impacted my weekend or whatever. And I no longer work on those kinds of briefs. I'm very intentional about, I mean, I probably only work with sort of between 5 and 20 clients at a time, and we've got quite an established relationship. We know how we play ball with each other. They might be some of the sexiest names, quite often they're not. So a lot of the agents, studios that I work with are sort of between 2 and 20 people. But I work with them on different levels, not when a lot of my work is not necessarily reactive, it's proactive. And I think that allows me to have the work-life balance. So like Lila, you know, we get up at 6 in the morning, we have our breakfast together, we might do a little meditation or a little bit of breathing. And it's a really nice way to start the day. Whereas before, when I was living in London, you know, it was like how many, I don't know, fancy dinners I was going out with or whatever. Now it's definitely about what's my quality of life like, and how can I enjoy my family more, and how can I make memories and that kind of stuff, rather than, yes, I still want the money in the bank, right? It's finding the balance between the two.
To answer the first part of your question on what does success look like, I've just, I think when I first started, success was whatever I thought everybody else thought success was, which is constantly changing. And I realized that that's just not sustainable. You'll never be happy. I was just not happy trying to keep up with what everybody else said was successful. So I just figured out what success looked like for me, and I've allowed it to evolve with me, because as I change, it changes. And it also has allowed me to give myself grace as well. If I've not maybe achieved XYZ, then I'll reflect on, well, what did I achieve? And the thing that I didn't achieve, how did I learn from it? And that's a win in and of itself. I've also made it a practice to, with myself and my friends, celebrate the small wins, because I never used to do that. I would always focus on the big losses and only the big wins. And even the small losses I'm focusing on, everything else is like irrelevant. I lost this thing and it's a big deal. But so now, even if it's a small win, I'm like, oh, I did this. And I might not post about it, but within me and my circle, it's a moment, because you never know like where that small win could take you, or also what that means for you. Work-life balance, I've really struggled with. I also experienced a really big burnout in end of 2023. With my previous company, We Are Soul, we did like a nationwide billboard campaign, and we had like so many artists that we featured. We made a coffee table book. We traveled across different parts of the UK. It was a big project. And that, alongside freelancing and other projects, I just realized like I was someone who was doing things all the time, type A, 1,000 things a minute. And I just didn't, it was too much. And I got sick, like not like seriously sick, but I got sick enough to be like, I can't do this again. And I also was such a worrywart. I was such a, like, every single thing that would happen, I'm panicking. Everything's stressful. And if you met me in that time, you'd probably think like, oh, she needs to chill a little bit. And I also then, who you surround yourself with, some of my closest friends are just like, Jedidah, we're not saving lives. It's fine, like, it's chill. So now I feel like I'm so much more relaxed about things, and it's allowed me to really take a step back and be like, okay, cool, is this like the be all and end all? Is this something in my control? And that's really helped. I'm also taking my health and fitness and my me time a lot more seriously. I don't have children, but my me time is still important. And I'm just trying to find time to like carve that out, because I'm usually like the first thing to come off my list. I have a to-do list every day, and I will prioritize that client every single time above myself. If I have a to-do list, I'm the first thing off. And now I'm the first thing on, and then everything else comes after. It's just like so important. I think it's made me a lot more chill. I don't know, you're in the control and create cohort. I don't know if you've noticed, like I'm a lot more relaxed, but yeah, hopefully you can see.
I'm probably not the best person to speak to. The older I get, like the more I'm trying to merge my work and my life into one. I feel like I've always been in a space where I'm trying to add value to my life and the things that I love. I'm really privileged to have spent most of my life working on things that I love. So I've just been trying to max that out more. Like I was even working with my dad last month, this month, yeah. So I feel like I'm probably not the best person to speak to in terms of like separating the two. I think my values though have changed consistently. Like I'm from Hackney, and I'm gonna buy a house in Hackney. And once I have it, it could be the house I live in right now. I care so much about the house I live in and the community I live in right now. So realistically, that's actually my North Star, like that I could just rest up in that, versus the idea of like riches and holidays every like 2 months. So I don't know. I feel like I'm just like trying to like let my values shift and change, and then let my world expand as much as possible. And also just work out where my work can live. I wish I had something so material as illustration. I think like some of the most impactful illustrators of our time have been like, like that with a cause, something they really care about, have defined, like have created a visual movement connected to something that's happened in culture. So I would just be like, yeah, just like, if you got to do a little bit of voluntary work in your life, like what would it be? If you were going to explore your artistry connected to something that you care about so fully, what would that be in order to like help propel what you care about and where it's going, and then let the rest of it be like mashed down, just get your money. So that's what I would say.
Right answer.
Felt like that. Thank you. Got room for one more question. Oh,
Let's do that.
thank you, God. Thank you, Storm. One person to answer it. Yeah. Let's do that. These last two questions. Just one us.
So right, I'm Andy. Thank you for the full 4 years to the so far. I'm also an illustrator, so I love how fun you see illustrators. And so I'm Anthony. I run a research studio with Reconcile Journal, and I run an illustration studio called Mine and Honey. And my question for all 3 or 4 of you, the three theme is about collaboration. So I also work at kind of model, and I guess the way that you guys live, I have clients and we work into wonderful kind of freelance way, they're delivering services. But my question is about collaboration and how each of you operate with working with other collectives and creators, maybe other freelancers that you love. What is your kind of approach to it? How do you bring it into your creative practice? I'm going to see the now where I want to kind of inspire more collaboration and working alongside people that I love. Where over the past 5 or 10 years, I had this list, like here's a list of all the work that it's some great press highlights that now I'm going to develop and doing more collective and active stuff I'm going to learn and thoughts. Lunch.
Sorry. I'd say people are crazy, People are nuts, and we all are. I'm nuts. We're all nuts anyway. It's just about, I always look at like Icarus, and like, let's be real. Does everyone know the story of Icarus? That guy would just fly to the sun. He wanted to feel that warmth, and then he burned his little wings. And he dropped out of the sky. I think Icarus was onto something. Like, we all want to fly as close to the sun as we can without burning our wings, and I think it's really important to do that, because it ain't gonna change. It's gonna be the same scenario every time around. when I think about working with people, there's either two things. There's two things, two routes. One is like, okay, are we on the bid together? Are we going to split the work? I think there's a lot of us who started their own things. I would say that I am guilty of starting a thing with someone who's a narcissist, not going to go mad, but, you know, just didn't work out. So the question is, are you going to work together to build something? And the work is like the visible, is clear, the inspiration and the intent is there, because then you can have like a very free flowing like way of working. Otherwise, spend time chatting to people, know what they want to do, what they want to create. And then when you have opportunities come up and you build like a sense of resource or opportunity, you can just disperse it to people. And I think it's really important to do that. I think most of my work is about trying to work out how to disperse it if possible and just make it clear. I think briefs are really important. A brief that you've spoken about with them on a DM first, then comes in the form of an email and a document, because we can be our most creative in the boxes that are created for us. So I try to like, you know, go direction over destination with people and just make sure that like I can resource it in a way. And if I can't resource it like money, then what values, like what doors are we opening? Where's this project being shown or shared so that it reaches this conversation? And I kind of try to like manage or support people's access into other spaces so that like there is value being built when there isn't like lots of money next to it. But like, yeah, that's how I move with putting people on or working with people, I think.
I think to keep my answer brief, I would say don't work together just because you're friends. Work together because you're both bringing value to each other, not just because you get on really well. Like, of course, yes, get on really well, but are you bringing a value that I'm not bringing? And are you doing something better than I can do it? Am I doing something better than you can do it? Because then we have a purpose of working together, not just vibes. Because vibes can only get you so far if you're going based on your emotion, the fact that you really love this person, it doesn't mean that you're compatible in the workspace or that you're going to build something that can last a long time. I think that's like a priority to figure out first before you get into a working relationship.
That's something.
Should we go to this chart? Yeah, just get the...
We do one answer it.
You guys?
No.
Yes, should we go to the next question? Yeah.
Hello, hi guys. First of all, thank you for the talk. It's been amazing. My name is Hassan. I'm part of Brixton Finishing School for this year, so it's been amazing and really informative. I had a question about the gaps within freelance work. So I've been freelance for just under a year now, and I've loved it. It's definitely something that I enjoy a lot within creative strategy and advertising. And there'll be gaps for like a period of a couple of months where nothing will come through. And there's always that level of uncertainty that I'm sure you guys have had in your earlier careers. And how do you deal with that? And how do you kind of maintain being proactive or productive throughout it? That might not just be like going to an event or networking, which is like the standard answer, just more so because a lot of the times it's a mental barrier. And I just wanted to know how you guys explore that.
By the way, it's not just in our early careers, it's still today. Like, sadly, you have to prepare yourself. With freelancing, it's going to keep happening. Even to the people way bigger than me, and, you know, it happens. Always have an emergency fund or some sort of money, like, so that you're not like, yeah, right. We all did. Right. So what do we do during the quiet periods? It depends on where my headspace is. Sometimes I will use that as like my time to actually just reflect and like, you know, not beat myself up. Like, okay, how can I actually strategize and improve what I'm doing that could take me to the next level? Maybe I actually need to pause and reflect and re-strategize and, okay, maybe I need to do things differently. Or I'll use that time to do cold outreach, which I know loads of people hate, but it still works. It still works. You might get you might get aired a lot, but you will get one yes. And that one yes could lead to a job that pays your bills for 3 months. So I think cold outreach every now and then, once or twice a year, is important. I do that. January is my cold outreach month. January, I've done all my cold outreach, and then I follow up every now and then, but that's what I do. Or I'll invest in my own personal projects if I have the money to do that. That's when I'll do my own thing, and that project usually gets me more work. So yeah, it depends on obviously where your finances are and where your headspace is and what's important at that time, but don't use that time to panic. because panicking isn't going to do anything. You still don't have the work. So you need to find ways to make either work for yourself, stay busy, or meet the right people. Actually, like I saw this director, I don't know what you do, but I saw this photographer or whatever it is, and actually maybe I can assist them. Maybe I can shadow. I would still be down to assist, even though I'm a director. I will definitely assist if there's a job that I could learn from you on. And then I'll ask for a bit of change as well that I can make money on. So maybe find ways to diversify your skills, meet the right people, assist, do your own personal projects, hold outreach. Yeah. Just use the time wisely instead of panicking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. We went over time, so